Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sports fan of all ages, wherever and whenever you may be tuning into this. I'm your host, Matt McLaughlin, and joined alongside very special guest, one of those most swole reporters that you've ever seen on the gram. He is getting that chest and traps looking thick. He's also reporting on Front Office Sports, a lot of business transactions, which we're going to get into. It's the one, the only, AJ Perez. AJ, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just jump right into it. Thank you for joining the show, and I know you don't have much time. A lot of sales, a lot of things going on in the NFL already. Denver Broncos, Rob Walton's group acquires it. How did this all come together, and what are the next steps for Rob Walton and his group to finalize the sale?
Yeah, he'd been the front runner for quite some time, for several weeks, and he was one of the four groups to submit the final bids by Monday's deadline. And it wasn't that about 30 hours later we had him winning it. It was 4.65 billion, which is just a little more than twice the Panthers went for 4 years ago. So it's, it could have gone up to 5 billion, but I think everybody kind of realized that Walton was ready to, pony up the money no matter where it went. I'm not sure if it went beyond 5.5, it probably would have maybe dissuaded him, but he has he has a clear path. He has to put down about $1.4 billion in cash. That's for the NFL, 30% has to be put down in cash. And then the rest can be financed or made up for by the other co-owners. But he's worth, $50-60 billion. That's not going to be an issue. The next step now is the finance committee. Once that gets moved through there, the next few weeks, it goes to the full ownership for a vote. And we expect to have that done by sometime by July. Usually it's going to be July, maybe August, but I'm thinking by July we'll have a special meeting called among the NFL owners, and everybody expects them to get, if not unanimous, easily 3/4 as required.
And when did the Bolin Trust Fund finally decide that this was the time to pull the trigger? There were multiple instances where they were denying any potential sale. What was was there a specific day or moment where they decided, you know what, it's time?
Late last year, it kind of was heading that direction. And there was one court case that had to be cleared up. That was from a co-owner of the team who had passed away before Pat Bolin did, actually. So there was a little dispute whether that co-owner had a say, or his estate had a say in it. Once the judge ruled in late December that it could move forward, the team in January hired Allen and Company to handle the sale. They've handled the sale of several teams, including the Mets recently. Once it got there, and then the first bids came in, we had, there was a lot of people, I was reporting on this. Robert F. Smith kicked the tires a little bit, billionaire hedge fund manager, and there's been others. And there's a lot of billionaires who didn't get into this, who we expected to. And so that goes into what's the next team that were they just waiting on the Broncos? Maybe they didn't want them necessarily, but maybe waiting for the next team to come on the market.
So what? Yeah. So with ownership of sales, or ownership of teams, it's kind of weird because you don't really see it that often. And especially now with what's going on in Washington with Dan Snyder and that whole, kind of circus. It's just a circus. Now that he and Roger Goodell are scheduled to appear in Congress, what is there a potential chance that the NFL just spins him around and kicks him to the curb out of the NFL?
Well, first we'll see if they actually show up for that January 22nd hearing. Fair. They have not just declared, it was an invite. It could become a subpoena. Time's running out. This committee does so much. It saw today with the mass shooting, and trying to get more strict gun laws in place. There's I think we're not there yet. Jarrett Bell reported about 3 weeks ago, USA Today, my former colleague, that there were some owners counting votes. There's not enough right now, because just like Walton getting approved to throw Snyder out, you have to have 3/4. And we're not there yet. A lot of it is because the investigations aren't done. The Congress investigation isn't done. There's the one that the league has going since January. Mary Jo White is looking into both Snyder's, both the allegation against Snyder that was made in Congress in front of this committee a couple months back, and also looking into the financial irregularities that I reported on back in April. So there's a lot going on there. And also there's the attorneys general and at least DC and also Virginia have their own investigations going. So I think a lot of just waiting and seeing how those play out. I mean, and we kind of see that with Deshaun. We know all the allegations with Deshaun, the new ones dropped yesterday by the New York Times. it doesn't look good. I think, but they still have their investigation going. The NFL's investigation is still ongoing. That's why we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, whether he'll be suspended several games, a year, a ban, a lifetime ban for 12 months for being reinstatement, where he can apply for reinstatement. We don't know. Or it could be nothing. It's just like until that investigation is done. And those usually going by other investigations, I'd expect to be done by August, before the start of the preseason, but, or July, August, but we don't know.
And the Deshaun Watson situation is fascinating because it's also holding up Baker Mayfield's future. If Deshaun Watson does get a multi-game suspension, possibly even a whole season or more, you mentioned a lifetime ban, can the Browns just tear up that contract that they gave, that $230 million?
No, I mean, that's going to be a hard out. And I don't know the particulars of his contract, the player contracts there. They knew what they were getting into. Obviously there was one more accuser that came forward. We have more media reports out there. His attorney, Rusty Hardin, who I've known for many, many years, kind of went on the radio last Friday and talked about happy endings being all right. And that was not good. Even though he was not talking about this, particular incident with his client, it did not look
good. A good look for Rusty.
No, it wasn't. And he had to send a press release out to us a couple hours after that radio hit. So it's not going in the right direction for him. And it's like, what about for the draft picks? I mean, they gave up so much to get him. And there's really clawing that back. It's going to be tough for that. And whether there are outs in the contract for the Browns, it all depends on what happens with the NFL. And it's if the discipline's meted out and what kind and how, and if there are going to be any outs for either the Browns not paying him or getting clawing back those draft picks. It doesn't look good for him though.
And it's weird because all these new allegations have come at a time when the NFL said that it's concluded its investigation. Have you found any merit to that? The NFL has concluded its investigation, or is this other stuff going to tack on to what they've already found?
Yeah, they was concluded in one part because there was the grand jury, the criminal parts, as far as we know, is done. They had those two grand juries earlier this year that came back with no bills, which means they are not going to prosecute Watson for those alleged incidents. But now we're up to 24, and there's other, Jenny talked to others who haven't come forward yet, and they all have the same kind of stories. There's just so much of a pattern there. I think it was 66 total, I think, that, over a 17-month span that he went to, and not everybody alleged anything improper, but that's a lot. And I wrote about this last April, just the decision making but that didn't dissuade the teams from going after him. The Browns weren't the only team to look at him. So it's he's a talent, and how, this, unfortunately, that can trump a lot of other things.
And I think from my fans' perspective, it felt like when that huge contract was announced, 230 guaranteed. To me, it felt like, okay, there must be some type of out, because I don't think that the Browns would have given that contract if they didn't have some type of legal implication and contract talk. Obviously, that's for lawyers. But with the Baker Mayfield side of things, have you heard anything about any teams necessarily trying to get a new contract and maybe a sign and trade situation or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't do day-to-day trades and transaction stuff, but I think maybe it's them not trading them, not finding what they want in a trading partner could work out. I mean, if Deshaun is suspended, it's not going to be a great look. And I don't think Baker wants to go back, but he's still under contract. What do they restructure his deal? Give him more money to stay around? I mean, there's so many things out there that are unknown because we don't know whether he's going to be playing this year as far as Watson goes.
Exactly. And when you're covering all these massive stories, is part of you just this is really my life? I was a kid from San Jose State University, and now I'm covering these massive NFL ordeals going on. What is that like for you personally?
Yeah, I wanted to be a hockey writer, and then he realized, and I have been, and I covered 12 Stanley Cup finals, but then he realized NFL is so huge, and it's kind of, when you get kind of moved, start covering the NFL, it's wow, people are paying attention, and developing sources and covering this stuff. And it's kind of getting to talk to NFL owners once in a while for my stories and the insiders. And I'm not Adam Schefter. I'm not, trying to be breaking those little, I'm not saying little, not the transactional scoops, which he's great at. I'm not going to, and he's well compensated for it, as we've written about. But it was kind of more of into, I call it quick enterprise reporting, where it's it takes some digging, not spending months on one story, but it's kind of kind of have a good mix going between the short stories and helping with the newsletter, like I did today with the Broncos, and doing the longer form stories. We have one coming out on Saturday that Mike McCarthy, my co-writer and also a senior reporter at Front Office Sports. We have a big kind of looking into the broadcast landscape. It's kind of changed with the Tom Brady future coming to Fox Sports, and a lot. And obviously, we have Aikman and Buck switching to ESPN, and we have so it's been a lot of movement, and it goes back to John Madden '94 to Romo to where we are now, and it's not showing any signs of dying down, especially with Amazon coming on board.
And have you seen it, like in your experience reporting, have you seen any like this level of like broadcaster movement? It feels like this is the first time I've ever experienced in my lifetime. Have you ever seen anything similar to this?
Only 94, and I was still in high school, so I'm old. But when CBS lost the contract, that made Pat Summerall, and John Madden free agents, and many other people free agents. So they had a short time, and there was a bidding war, and Madden got $8 million, which was more than any current player by far who was playing in the league back in '94 when Fox started broadcasting the games with the NFC package. And CBS eventually had to bid a lot more to get it back many years later. But that set CBS back. And I think that's why, it is a big deal for these networks. And it may not, wow, Brady's getting $375 million over 10 years or whatever it's going to be. That may seem like a lot, and it is a lot. But these, you're selling the most respect. The most respected sports brand for sure, but also the biggest. And you need to put on a major, like a huge product. You have to have the big game feel, and one way to do that is to signing guys like Brady, Romo, and those type of former players to go alongside the big game play-by-play guys. Exactly,
and I think Amazon Prime really made the biggest splash this year, getting Al Michaels, Kirk Herbstreit. There are rumors of Pat McAfee coming along. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah. That was Mike McCarthy's story. Yeah, Pat kind of mentioned it on air last week, where he's like, "Well, he's not the only one's talking to me," basically. So we don't know if you can't read too much into Pat sometimes, but we kind of have like a love-hate, mostly love. It's just he gives us crap once in a while. But Mike, he basically verified Mike's reporting that there have been talks. Yeah, they'll be gearing up, and especially if Apple or Amazon buy a chunk of the NFL media, which is so that's Red Zone, that's NFL.com, NFL Films. That's if Amazon or Apple buy that's going to even be more talent needed to fill that out. Not a ton more, because obviously NFL Network has their own talent, but they may be growing into more of a streaming focused shows as well.
Yeah, what is with Apple? Like, Apple felt like they were in the running for that Thursday night, those Thursday night broadcast rights. Are they just kind of like stalking from the weeds kind of deal, with more so the website and maybe Red Zone?
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, there's going to be. Have you watched the MLB games on Apple?
No.
Okay,
baseball is the major league of stooges, in my opinion. Now.
They didn't. I'm a Dodger fan. Watched one of the Dodger broadcasts, and I was not too impressed. So, Apple is kind of, you're right, filling their way around. And I think when if you acquire NFL media, you have a built-in studio right there at SoFi Stadium. You have all that talent that's already been there. You have breaking news reporters like Ian and all these others. And you're gonna have basically a built-in, ready to go operation if they go that route. Same with Amazon. Amazon's building their studio out down there in Culver City as well. So it's gonna be interesting to see what the next step is. Obviously, the Sunday Ticket's like the only real major package left. I know the NFL is Yahoo has had the games the last few years for in-market streaming on. So that's kind of, NFL is going to create their own product. They'll ditch that if somebody else wants to come and take that over, because they'll make more money than doing their own product.
Yeah, is the limited availability of Sunday Ticket really the biggest driving force of why people aren't buying it? Because it felt like I thought people would snatch that up, but it feels like the companies are kind of staying away from it.
It's not a moneymaker by itself. It does drive promotions, and DirecTV built a huge audience, especially before streaming, with having that exclusive, those games. Now it got diluted a little bit when you add, more Thursday night football games that weren't a part of, when DirecTV initially had, this is going back 20 years, had the Sunday Ticket by them, they still have it by themselves for one more year. But there were as many options. There weren't Thursday games as much. They didn't have 3 games on Thanksgiving. They didn't have, so the inventory isn't what it was, but it's still pretty crucial, because if you're a fan, I was a Rams fan. I kind of stopped once they moved to St. Louis. I didn't stop following them. I'm still a big NFL fan. So for me, it's not for me. That's not for me. I'm MLB TV. I have for the Dodgers, even though most of the games are on national TV anyway. But it's kind of you're just you're paying for inventory games, but it's not going to make you a ton of money, but it will drive subscriptions. And if for Apple TV or Amazon Prime or Apple TV Plus, that's what they're thinking.
And to kind of stray away from the actual streaming, the actual NFL itself, does the salary cap matter anymore? I feel like the teams can just sign people and then just kick the contract down, like Bobby Bonilla with the Mets, and just go 20 years down the line. Does it matter?
Yeah, I could see the NFL changing the contract structure, because you're right. They look at Deshaun. I mean, the base salary for 2022 is so small. You push it all back in future, but that will actually screw your cap up for 2 years. Everybody's counting on the salary cap going up, and it usually does. The only time it hasn't over the last couple of decades is when COVID hit and all the money from ticket sales, disappeared from like a large majority of the teams. I know some teams had about 10, or I think it was at least 10 didn't have any fans, some with reduced. So that set the salary cap back some, but it's already back to where it probably would have been anyway at this point. The NFL just rebounded so well. You're counting on that too. So if there's something else happens and the cap stays stagnant, that would cause more issues. But a lot of these teams are just betting on the cap going up year after year.
Yeah, because the Rams, you mentioned the Rams, they signed Allen Robinson, and there's still rumors that they're going to bring back Odell. And I'm like, okay, we're just doing what the Dodgers did and just like load up our entire offense with every single guy that we can sign. And then the Aaron Donald contract just got signed this week, where he gets 3 years, $95 million. How is this possible? Like, how is this possible? And the Chiefs did it with Patrick Mahomes and 10-year, $500 million contract. Like, how are teams just saying like, oh, we'll move this base salary from here to 10 years down the road? Is that pretty much how it's working?
Oh, for the Rams, they don't worry about signing any rookie contracts, so any high end rookie contracts for a while. They give it all their draft picks away. Yeah, there's always way. Yeah, there's always a way to structure things, but it's still you still have to field the team, and there's going to be some players making league minimum. And the Rams will probably have more players close to that just because of those big signings. They're also a destination. Free agents will come to teams like the Rams for less, not a lot less, but less. Where teams like Commanders, where I'm here outside DC, where you have to, I wouldn't say overpay, but you pretty much have to pay top dollar, because the team hasn't been successful. You got all this issues with the ownership and stuff. With the over 23 years of Dan Snyder being the owner, has a lot of and the team not doing much. I think 3 playoff appearances in those 23 years, maybe 4. So there's teams that are much worse off when it comes, because they have to fight these players, especially veteran players who want to win a ring.
Exactly. And with Washington, they still have to sign at some point. They're going to have to sign Chase Young if they want to keep him. If Dan Snyder somehow, some way, NFL owners get the amount of votes to kick him out of the league, is it similar to what the NBA did with the Clippers when the whole Donald Sterling incident happened, where the league actually takes over and then they sell the team? Like, how does that all work if an owner does get booted out?
It's never happened before, so it'll be interesting to see if it does follow the Sterling route. Most likely, if the votes are there, they're going to go to Dan privately and say, "Hey, you got to sell really? Now," because you'll probably get more money if it's not leaked that it's that he has to sell. If you have to sell, like what happened in Carolina with Jerry Richardson, he got so much more than what he paid as the franchise, the expansion franchise fee back in the 90s. But he could have gotten more if he wasn't in that kind of trouble. Probably. But he chose, and the funny thing in reporting on Snyder is, like, Richardson wouldn't have been forced out. That's the whole thing. And despite all of the racist language and allegations of harassment, there was, you have to have, there may not have been enough to force him out. And that's kind of sad state of things when you have that many allegations against you, when the other owners, it's not that it's not that Snyder or even Richardson had know where the bodies are buried. It's not that. It just, they don't want to set a precedent and take an owner out like the NBA did, and even Major League Baseball, with Frank McCourt. And the Frank McCourt was totally a financial issue, and him not being solvent enough to field a team, a marquee team. But the league really cares about the DC market, and I've seen it slide, and especially having the stadium proposal is like more than 10,000 seats smaller than FedEx Field. Are they just realizing that this fan base has shrunk forever? They're going to make a lot of money back up and more luxury suites for sure, but it's not a good look. And the NFL really, this was a marquee top 3 market for the NFL for pretty much since it started up until all the way into the 90s until the early 2000s, where it started to change. And the NFL wants it to get back there. Whether it's going to be Dan Snyder doing it or somebody else, we'll see.
And that's I will, as an Eagles fan, as much as I hate to say it, I will give Washington fan base credit, because when the Kirk Cousins, when those were like the prime years in the last 2 decades, that stadium was rocking. With this new stadium, because they're also proposing a shopping district and concourse area and stuff like that. They've already they've bought land supposedly for over $100 million, 200 acres. Yeah.
They have the rights to buy it, which is like weird, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. It's kind of like we've secured the rights to pay $100 million. Yeah. It's kind of, so, and I don't know the outs there on that one. It was leaked to the ESPN, and I don't know, I know how it was leaked. And I think it was leaked at a time where things were happening with the team. Yeah. As far as the vote. Yeah. So it's kind of, which is like, we're not shocked. It's kind of the Friday news dump. It happened earlier in the week, but there was, the team wants to show that they are serious about Virginia and building a stadium here, even if where they want to put it is arguably the worst place to put it in the whole region.
Why is it the worst place to put it in? I'm just not familiar with the state.
The 95 is like probably one of the top 5 worst freeways in America. There's traffic there at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. It's like it's only like distance-wise, like 25 miles, 20 to 25 miles from DC, but it's along just the most congested, and they're talking up train transportation and stuff, but people want to tailgate. That's like, you can, obviously you can go to and tailgate with your friends on a train, but if you want to drive there, and most people want to drive, it's going to be a mess. And putting it there. And there's 2 locations in Prince William County. Both will be pretty awful traffic wise. And there was one here in my county, Loudoun County, which won't be much better, but the metro's closer. I don't know. It's everybody, but the team has told me that they have not ruled out, RFK as a possibility, and they're not in any hurry. They can extend. They have at least 3 or 4 more seasons at FedEx, and they can extend that since they own it. So they can go to year to there, but they do want I was told within the next year, they need to figure it out and break ground somewhere.
And are the naming rights to FedEx Field up soon? I felt like I read that somewhere. I could be totally. Yeah,
I think that's when, I think it's 2024. I think 2023. Yeah, 2024, 2025. Yeah. So basically, when the lease ends at FedEx is basically when the FedEx naming rights are up, and that's a big issue too. The legislators here in Virginia are worried, and some of them have proposed language into the final bill, which we still haven't seen. That would shield the state from because of all the if they can't get a major naming rights sponsor, and we see how much is being paid out there, a lot from crypto companies. They're afraid all the drama around it's gonna lead to less money for the naming rights, and they want protection and to the Snyder to pay up to make up for it.
So when is the voting for when is the next step for the stadium, the new stadium proposal?
Oh, they still have to release it. So they have to release the final bill to the legislators within 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours before a vote. And there's some special sessions coming up. Now that they got the budget passed, they could deal with some other bills, and there's more than a dozen other bills, including this one that we still haven't seen. It's a lot of different subjects, and it's not just sports, but we really don't know when or if that's going to come up. There's still a chance they may withdraw it. I don't think it's. I think if they read the writing on the wall, they're not going to go up another today. Jack Del Rio's statements actually made one state delegate say, "I'm not voting for it now." That this sealed it. I'm really not going to be going for it. And you've seen more and more state delegates and state senators stepping forward and say, "Yeah, I'm not now. There's too much smoke, and it's just too much controversy." at this time to support it. And, that's why we've seen the $1 billion that they're supposed to get towards the $3 billion stadium initially. January this year was supposed to be $1 billion and went down to 300 million within a few weeks. And we don't even know what the final sum will be. It could be zero. And it could just be a stadium authority with, that's there to, basically find a place for it and have working with local governments to get it done. But it may not be any taxpayer money backed for this project.
All right, so last segment on the show, we do a little rapid fire segment called Off the Dome. 35 seconds, rapid fire questions. Sound good to you?
Sounds good.
All right, and here we go. Greatest Dodger of all time?
Jesus. I'll go Jackie Robinson.
Who wins the 2022 Stanley Cup?
Man, I'm going to go with I'll go with the Abs. They'll be rested.
Chase Young for Defensive Player of the Year this year?
Quite possibly. I mean, that would be. It all depends. If the team's a winning team and they're trying to build that up, if they're a competitive team and make a playoff run for sure.
Chest or back day guy?
I do both the same day. So push and pull same day. So yeah. So it's both.
Last thing, favorite meal? Favorite meal?
Favorite meal? Probably Mexican food, torta. It's hard to find tortas out here in the East Coast, but in California, much easier.
Last question. What's your favorite coast, East or West Coast?
Oh, West. Yeah.
All day?
West. So yeah, all day. I mean, the weather is so much better. It's nice out here now. I'm not gonna complain, but it's usually the humidity will kick up, and I'll be back in Southern California living on the beach.
Minute 1 second. Pretty good. That's actually pretty good. I had one person went over like 5-10 minutes. I was like, okay, this is not rapid fire anymore. Thank you so much, AJ. I'll let you get going. Thank you for hopping on the show.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course. See ya.